Did you know that the biggest mistake most lifters make isn't lifting too little or too heavy, it's not managing their volume properly. If you're feeling fatigued all the time or your progress is stalling, this might be because you're exceeding your maximum recoverable volume or your MRV. Let's dive into why this is a major issue and how you can avoid it. Welcome back to A Science Saturday by me, Lockie. I'm a final year sport and exercise science student at Oxford Brookes University, and I've had over 4 years of resistance training experience and even longer in the world of research for sport and exercise. So I've had plenty of time to figure out why maximum recoverable volume is an important consideration to have in your mind when programming your sessions, and how you can use it to your advantage to make sure you recover efficiently and effectively for your next session so you don't start overtraining by accident. So if you're training too much, your performance can actually tank because of excessive volume. So today I'm going to explain how to find the sweet spot for training volume and how it all relates to managing fatigue and improving recovery. So let's get into it. So here's the main problem. Many gym goers and athletes push themselves too hard because they believe that doing more is always better. And while yeah, that might give short-term gains, it often leads to overtraining and burnout. So the key to sustainable progress isn't just about working hard, it's about working smart. So exceeding your body's maximum recoverable volume, or MRV, means you're pushing your body beyond its ability to recover, leading to accumulated fatigue that affects performance, which means you often spend more time recovering than actually training, which is a major roadblock when it comes to consistent progress. The science of recovery and fatigue is really crucial here, because your central nervous system, or your CNS, can only handle so much stress before it starts to affect your motor unit recruitment and muscular performance. So if you're not managing your volume correctly, your CNS and your muscles are constantly fatigued, making it harder to push through your next session. So let's first explore what is MRV and why does it actually matter? Because most of you might not even know what MRV is, and thus might not know why it even matters. So let's break it down. MRV is the maximum amount of training volume that your body can handle while still being able to fully recover. Think of it as an upper limit of how much work you can do before your body starts to break down. If you exceed MRV, you're not just training, you're creating a cumulative effect of fatigue, which will hinder your performance in future workouts and delay recovery. And the most common way to do this is by muscle group, because you usually train your muscle groups in separate sessions unless you're running a full body split, which a lot of people aren't. It's more common to do separate muscle groups on separate days, like a push-pull leg split. So let's say you run a push-pull legs rest split. That's great because you have 3 days of recovery between training a muscle and then training it again. But there's significant evidence to say that frequency is one of the most important factors when it comes to maximizing hypertrophy. So the more common splits nowadays are things like a push-pull split, where you do the corresponding leg muscles at the end of each session. So for push, you would do quads and calves, and for pull, you would do hamstrings and glutes. But then if you've noticed, there's literally 1 day, or I suppose potentially 2 if you include the day that you trained the muscle, depending on when you trained it in the day, between training muscle twice. So that might not be enough time for your body to recover, or at least the specific muscles to recover in time for your next session. But then that depends on the actual amount of volume you've done within that session. So if your maximum recoverable volume for your chest is 15 sets and you do 20 sets, you probably won't be able to recover in time for your next chest session. So MRV is influenced by several factors, including the type of training, so strength versus endurance, your experience level, and even your genetics. So it's important to note that your MRV isn't a fixed number. It's dynamic and changes based on factors like recovery, nutrition, and overall health. All right, so you know about MRV, what it is and how it works, but then you might be thinking, why is fatigue even a bad thing? For some people, this seems like an obvious answer, but for others, it's a very good question. So training too hard in the form of excessive volume causes a rise in CNS fatigue, which is the primary reason for stalling progress. So CNS fatigue comes from muscle damage and the inflammatory response following really high volume workouts. The muscle fibers get so fatigued, and so does your nervous system, which has to relay commands to your muscles. The more you exceed your MRV, the more you build up CNS fatigue, which can result in feelings of tiredness, decreased strength, and just overall poor recovery. But then what does that actually mean for your training? So if you're constantly pushing your body beyond its MRV, you're not allowing it to fully recover. You can't just train as hard as possible every day and expect to keep improving. Your body needs adequate rest between sessions to replenish energy stores and repair muscle tissue. Right, so you understand MRV and how fatigue impacts your training. So you understand why exceeding your MRV is not a good thing, and it's something you want to avoid consistently doing. Once or twice is fine, but if this is a consistent thing, you're going to increasingly put your body into more and more fatigue, which means your sessions will be less and less effective. So then how do you actually manage volume and fatigue together? And there are 3 great points I'd want to cover for this section. Number 1 is track your volume. Keep track of how much work you're doing in each session. Your total volume, so sets times reps times load, should not exceed your body's capacity for recovery. I understand this might be a hard thing to gauge. Where is your body's capacity for recovery, or where is your MRV? And this is just something you have to learn about your body as you get more experienced in training. You can't just have a set number and go, okay, that's it, because it won't be. It will be something that fluctuates, changes, and you learn how your body responds to a certain amount of stimulus and volume. Point number 2 is to periodize your training effectively. So don't go all out every single workout. Break your training into phases, such as deload weeks, where you reduce your volume or intensity to allow for better recovery. And then point 3 is proper nutrition. This is super important, so listen to this one. Fueling your body correctly is essential. If you're not eating enough to support your training, you'll accumulate more fatigue and thus hinder your recovery. By focusing on hitting a sustainable training volume that aligns with your MRV and paying attention to your body's signals, you'll be able to train harder when you need to and recover effectively. So now let's talk a little bit about overtraining, because this is what can happen when you consistently reach or exceed your MRV. So if you're not recovering properly, consistently, you're increasing the risk of injury, burnout, and mental fatigue. This is often why people plateau or regress in their training, because they've been training too much without enough recovery. And the key takeaway here is that it's all about balance. Like I said before, it's not about necessarily working harder. Whilst working hard will be effective, it's about managing that volume and working smarter. When your training volume is within your MRV, you can train as hard as you want, maximize recovery whilst also maximizing hypertrophy. This will ultimately make your training more effective, helping you build muscle and strength more efficiently. So what is the big takeaway here? And I promise you it's really simple. Managing your volume and staying within your MRV is the key to making consistent progress. If you train smarter, not harder, you can stimulate muscle growth without causing unnecessary fatigue that leads to overtraining. CNS fatigue is a real factor, one that many don't consider when they're pushing for maximum effort every session. But once you respect your MRV, your training will be far more productive. And like I said, if you're not sure where your MRV lies, track your volume, pay attention to fatigue indicators and fatigue levels. These can be tracked in things like fitness wearables like a Whoop. And don't be afraid to dial back the intensity when needed. This doesn't necessarily mean regressing on every exercise, but just slightly dialing it down a bit, helping your body to recover between sessions. This helps to maximize your muscle growth whilst optimizing the recovery process. This balanced approach will help you achieve long-term progress and avoid plateaus as a result from excessive fatigue. So I'd love to know, have you experienced overtraining or CNS fatigue from your workouts? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to optimize your training and avoid exceeding your MRV, click the link in the description and head over to my website where I build anyone personalized science-backed training programs. And don't worry, there is something for everyone. As always, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're new, turn on the bell icon for notifications every time I post, and smash the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.